The hero's journey is a term that was popularized by Joseph Campbell and originally used to analyze and compare various religions throughout different regions. Eventually, it became popular in the film industry to describe stories about a character that has a goal and faces obstacles on their quest to reach that goal, and after overcoming all of those trials, they receive a tremendous reward of some kind. Now, different people will describe the steps a hero takes very differently, but some common ones are a call to action, which is basically the main reason a hero will actually partake on a journey in the first place. The next one is a refusal of the call. Typically, the hero sees the danger and the fear of the unknown, and they're like, no way, I'm not doing that shit. The next thing is supernatural aid, or sometimes what people will call this the mentor figure. Basically, some kind of supernatural thing that will help the hero along the way, or some teacher that will teach them how to deal with transforming and becoming the hero that they should be. The next one is honestly probably the longest one, which is the road of trials. This is where they oftentimes will find new allies, but also new enemies, and they'll face a lot of difficulties and the obstacles along the way. The next step is the ordeal. An ordeal is basically the lowest point in the hero's journey. It's where oftentimes you have the death of a hero or the death of said mentor, and then there needs to become a rebirth of some kind in order to bring the hero or mentor back, or honestly just transform the hero, which is a whole nother step of transformation. And the last one is, of course, the return home, which oftentimes comes with the treasures or the reward. Now, what does this all have to do with a show about a degenerate being isekai'd and stealing women's panties? Absolutely everything. Now, we haven't reached the end of our hero's journey yet in the Konosuba anime, so I won't actually be discussing anything outside of that. But what I do want to talk about is how this story relates to many aspects of the hero's journey, and also how this show has already turned a lot of its tropes upside down and parodies on a lot of these elements. Also, how they viciously repeat this cycle and over and over and over again. Now, we all know that Konosuba is a parody on the isekai genre, and in case you didn't know, Konosuba is a parody on the isekai genre. So, I'm not really going to be touching on too many of those ideas. I mostly want to focus on the hero's quest. But first, who is our hero? Kazuma. It's Kazuma. Now, Kazuma is our protagonist that was isekai'd after dying from shock after almost being hit by a tractor that was moving at a leisurely pace. Yes, it's embarrassing. Everybody should point and laugh. Alright, so now that we know our pathetic hero, let's discuss some important things about the hero's journey and his version of it. Now, one of the main important factors outside of the steps that I mentioned previous is that the hero's journey is one that involves two worlds. One where the hero originates from, and the other where he travels to and conquers through his travels. Isekai is a pretty blatantly obvious example of this. In Kazuma's case, it's an isekai, but he mostly gets coerced into entering his new world. I mean, his two options were either enter this new world or enter the goddess realm, and Aqua's like, well, you can't have sex there, so you shouldn't go there. And that's like somehow enough to convince him. Another huge factor is obviously he's very much so impressed by the fact that he could potentially become his own hero. All of these characters that he's played in video games and seen in anime and shows and TV and all this stuff, he can finally be that person and become the true hero of his new journey. But all of these promises of grandeur are really not ever in any way whatsoever guaranteed by anybody. Aqua, or really any other goddess. In fact, the Devil King and the world that he's being summoned into is oftentimes stated as a pretty dangerous one, with the Devil King being one of the most dangerous beings in said world, and one of the main reasons why they really, really need people to go in there. So his call to action is in many ways forced upon him. It's not something he's really given a choice of. And his refusal of the call, well, pretty much every single day that Kazuma wakes up, he's refusing to fight the Devil King. So we get to see the refusal every single day. Now, the next step is, of course, the supernatural aid, which comes in the form of the goddess Aqua. Obviously, Kazuma's pissed that Aqua was eating chips and degrading towards him and his death. Rightfully so, to be perfectly honest. But regardless, he was very offended by these things. So he said, "Fuck you, bitch, you're coming with me." And so he actually isekais her along with him. And so she becomes his supernatural aid. But it turns out that she's incredibly useless. So, not really off to a very good start here, are we? But the next step is a road of trials where he potentially can learn some new things and meet some new allies along the way that might be able to help him out, right? Nope, not at all. In fact, he meets a mage who can only use one spell and only use that one spell once a day. In fact, she's almost, I think, stated to have to use it every day or else something happens, but also the way she reacts to this spell called Explosion is very orgasmic, which is weird to say. So I guess she needs to goon once a day and then she's good to go. I don't really get it. But anyway, regardless, he also meets another knight that is a blatant masochist and can't hit anything with her sword. So again, not off to a great start. We haven't even really mentioned Kazuma yet. Our hero, he's incredibly selfish and lazy to the point where he never really wants to even do a quest. So how the fuck is this supposed to work, and why do we even like this show? Well, because obviously it's funny as hell. I mean, this scenario is incredibly ridiculous and absurd, and all of the insane antics that these four get up to and all of the wild scenarios that they find themselves in are incredibly enjoyable for us as the viewer. Obviously, not so much for them as the people involved in them, but we like to watch them suffer. But also, each of these characters have many redeeming qualities as well that oftentimes are overlooked because of just how absurd they are in many other ways. Sure, Aqua is a useless, oblivious, and stupid goddess, but she's also incredibly caring and is always looking out for the well-being of the other members of the party. Not to mention, she actually is quite formidable against undead and can literally bring people back to life. Sure, Megumin can only use one spell, but it is the strongest destruction spell, and she's also an incredibly intelligent person that even Kazuma gives her credit for. Darkness is a masochist that can't hit anything with her sword and has the unfortunate first name of La Latina. But regardless, she is the toughest tank out there and can withstand anything physically, not to mention that she is happy to sacrifice herself in any way for the rest of her party, to the point where she even would forego her noble status. And lastly, we have Kazuma. A low-life, degenerate NEET that many of us could probably relate to. He's selfish, lazy, a pervert, and people in his town even refer to him as Kazutrash. But he also takes responsibility of situations and comes up with the best strategies to make sure that everybody goes home safely. And if they can't, then he is always the only one to die. All four of them have incredible and hilarious flaws, but they each have also incredible and awe-inspiring qualities as well. And I think that's why people will ruin friendships over arguments on who's best girl in Konosuba. It's because we like these characters a lot. We see similarities with ourselves and get to poke fun at our own flaws while also getting to see these complete buffoons accomplish incredible things, which potentially leads us to feel a little bit inspired. Okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit there, but regardless, this story is about 4 heroes who honestly have a rough go at it. They experience ordeal after ordeal. Their road of trials feels like it has no end. I mean, we've seen these characters go through so much together, and yet we aren't even really halfway through the journey yet. They've defeated destroyers, a Doulahan, some kind of earth demon mask man thing. Also, they've defeated a giant poison slime, and many others. And with every single new episode, we see a new call to action, and yet another new refusal. With every new enemy, we find a new ally, and honestly, sometimes, they were just the enemy. The story of Konosuba is the most chaotic telling of a hero's tale that I've ever seen, because they just keep repeating the same parts over and over, even with the clear goal of defeating the Devil King. They're constantly continuing their road of trials and face many ordeals, even the death of our hero many times. It feels almost as if they themselves don't want their journey to end. I mean, even Aqua, the one who has the most motivation to defeat the Devil King, is sitting around, lounging around, and forgets her goal on countless occasions. These heroes are flawed beyond redemption, and the quest is treacherous and honestly endless. It's absurd to believe in them, and yet everybody does. Like, literally nobody in the show really ever questions their party's abilities. In fact, they mostly call upon their party to do some of the most difficult things. Hell, even us as the audience want to believe in them. We somehow know that they'll make it out. Though Kazuma might die for the 10th time, but regardless, we all believe in our degenerate heroes. We want these buffoons to make it, because they're incredible characters for an incredible story, a story that keeps us captivated by the trials that they face and the hilarity that ensues. And I personally love this endless story of theirs, because I don't want this chaotic journey to end. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace.